Welcome to the show, everybody. Joseph Robert, the Fantasy Football Counselor. Welcome to the Saturday DFS show, Daily Fantasy Sports. Whether you're doing Draftkings or Fanduel, or even in your year long, it's going to help you with your starts and sits going into week 4. Welcome to the show. I love the Saturday DFS show because I play DFS every week and I go through all of the matchups. I'm going to give you all the optimal plays to start and maybe even sit at each position, guys. Very important. And their values via Draftkings and Fanduel, so you kind of get a good gauge on who the value plays are and which players to start at every single position, okay? So it's a very thorough, exciting episode. Now, before we get into this, I have a Lawnmower 3.0. This show is sponsored by these guys. Again, it's an amazing product. They've got a whole line of products that are great. Now, if you're a female and you want this, I'm sure you could probably use this, but you can get this for your husband, boyfriend, significant other. The man in your life would absolutely love this. Now, if you're a man, treat yourself. Use the promo code SHOWERLION. I've linked it below here. And if you're listening in the car, manscaped.com. Use promo code SHOWERLION. It's going to save you, I believe, 20% on this. Don't quote me, but I believe that's what it is. Anyway, the Lawnmower 3.0, and again, a whole line of amazing products. And I don't like to promote anything I don't use or I don't believe in. And again, very light, durable, well built. And again, it's going to protect you around those sensitive areas. Manscaped.com. Remember, use that promo code SHOWERLION. I've also linked it below here on YouTube. If you're in the car, pull over and order yourself one for this holiday season or just to treat yourself. All right. So all the optimal players at each position. Now, we all understand the pandemic is happening still. There's rumors of a second wave and all this stuff. You know, I don't really buy into this stuff too much, to be honest with you. I just kind of do my own thing, but it is affecting the NFL a little bit. You know, one game got postponed. I think it was the Steelers and the Titans. That gets postponed, but it is what it is, right? I think that gets moved on to week 8 or 9 or something like that. But listen, let's focus on the players that are going to be on the field. And I told you guys, if you're following my Insta, if you're not following Insta, make sure you follow at Fantasy Football Counselor and on all other platforms at Fantasy Football Counselor. But I'm telling you guys, I told you, make sure you have a lot of depth this year, and I told you, make sure you have more bench spots for your year-long league. Now, when you're doing your starts and sits, again, make sure you omit all of the Tennessee Titans and the Steelers players, okay, because that game will be postponed due to the world situation, okay? So let's start off with the quarterback position. Who are the optimal plays at each position? And I'm telling you, man, you really got to play those hot players, even if they have a tough position, because they're coming off good weeks. Now, in this particular case here, Aaron Rodgers has been pretty hot, and he's got arguably the easiest matchup versus position versus Atlanta. That is a prime time game, and I'm hoping Atlanta bounces back. This is ridiculous. The fact that they are losing the way that they're losing, I mean, it's a disaster. So I'm hoping the best for Atlanta. They are playing a red-hot Aaron Rodgers and those Green Bay Packers. Chip on the shoulder Rodgers, which I mentioned. And you're seeing guys like Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, guys that you got after the 6th round that are performing on a better level than guys like Lamar Jackson, who people invested second-round pick on. I told you to stay away. So Aaron Rodgers, a great matchup this week, but he is expensive on DraftKings, $7,100. A value play that's got an easy matchup here is Ryan Fitzmagic, coming off a good week last week and the week before, $5,400. So you can kind of see the contrast in regards to price with Aaron Rodgers at $7,100 and you got Ryan Fitzmagic at $5,400. Whether you're setting up your lineup on a salary or whatever it may be, you're going to get more value at the quarterback position with Ryan Fitzmagic. Now, I've said this before and I talk about this all the time. I always make sure, guys, that when I look at my quarterback, I try to anchor my team with a solid quarterback in my lineups at all times, okay? You're seeing that. I'm doing a lot of these flex-type DFS lineups where you have 5 picks, and the top flex option is the multiplier. You get a 1.5 multiplier on them, and I always find the quarterback is outscoring a lot of players. So I always make sure I have a good quarterback in my lineups no matter what I do. So I don't really go for the value plays as much at the quarterback position. I'm usually going on wide receivers for the value plays and those wild cards, okay? Russell Wilson, great matchup this week. He's playing Miami. He should light him up, man. It's going to be crazy. Stafford's been safe, 19 points last week. He's playing the Saints, relatively easy matchup, 4th easiest versus position. A couple other guys, Baker Mayfield, he's been boring, but he does have an easy matchup versus Dallas, but I'm personally staying away there. Burrow's been pretty good, man. Joe Burrow, actually, he's playing Jacksonville. Should have a good matchup this week. Now, understand, guys, Burrow is young, okay? He is very young, there is that uncertainty, but again, he has been pretty solid as of late, right? Drew Brees, can't really trust him. He's got an easy matchup. Sam Darnold, we already saw him play. Again, he had an easy matchup, but he only came up with 10 points. So, perfect example of like, hey man, you got to be careful. Even though this, the quarterback's mediocre, he's got a pretty good matchup. It didn't work out too well for him, okay? So, I'm just trying to give you a contrast here. Dak Prescott here, good matchup, but you're going to pay $7,200. He's very expensive. He's actually more expensive than Aaron Rodgers. Understandably so. He put up 34 points last week, 44 the week before. And I mean, Dak Prescott is throwing it a lot. Could be a result because of the McCarthy offense. So Dak Prescott's a guy you may want to consider there as a start. But again, you're going to pay, but anchor your team with a good quarterback. Matt Ryan's got almost a mid-range matchup coming off a tough week, week 3, going into week 4 fantasy football, 12 points, okay? So if you look at starts and sits, I hate sitting Matt Ryan, and usually always bounces back after a mediocre week. I mean, I got to start him in year long, okay? Lamar Jackson, still expensive, $8,100, so on DraftKings. And you can see DraftKings not letting up, knowing Lamar is talented, coming off a 15-point week last week. I mean, is that going to continue? Is he going to be better? We don't know, right? Cam Newton, $6,400, pretty good value. Had a good week 1 and 2. Week 3 was a little slow for him. Had he had 12 points last week. Again, his value shot down to $6,400, but he could have a bounce back week against KC mid-range matchup. A couple guys you want to be careful with. Nick Foles versus Indy. Indy's defense has been playing really tough, and the same thing goes for Phillip Rivers, who is playing against Chicago's defense. Be careful with those quarterbacks. Kyler Murray's got it in tough against Carolina's secondary. Josh Allen, who's been red hot, is playing against Vegas. Their secondary has been pretty good. He does have a tough matchup, but still very expensive at $7,300. He's been consistent for the past 3 weeks. Teddy Bridgewater, Gardner Minshew, all guys, and Carson Wentz having tough matches. Now, Carson Wentz has not won a game. He is playing San Fran. It is a tough matchup. Be cautious with him. I mean, I wouldn't start Carson Wentz anyway, right? I just don't trust him. Let's move on to the running back position here. Guys to start. Devin Singletary coming off a mediocre week of 16 points. Not bad, though. Is going to probably get some work here in an easy matchup versus Vegas. We got Kenyon Drake, easy matchup, but hasn't really wowed us. 9 points last week. I told you guys, be careful with Kenyon Drake. He's not good. He was a bottom feeder, a backup for Miami for years. There's no way he's going to come in and tear up the league. And, everybody's like, draft him in the second round. I'm like, no, be careful. Don't draft him. Todd Gurley, a guy I was recommending in the second round. Now, listen, I'm going to eat crow on this one. He's not looked like the same Todd Gurley, but hopefully this week, second easiest matchup first position against Green Bay. And I've yelled at him on social media. They got to run Todd Gurley. You can't be bringing Ito Smith in and losing games. You got to play your best player. That is Todd Gurley. He has to pick it up. No more Brian Hill or Ito Smith. They've got to play. Dalvin Cook, easy matchup versus Houston. Another guy I want to consider here is Alvin Kamara. Red hot, $8,000 on DraftKings. The most expensive running back on DraftKings and in DFS this week, understandably so, coming off a phenomenal week. I mean, do you blame DraftKings for putting him up there? He is so consistent. He's been rock solid. I really, really like Alvin Kamara, okay? Melvin Gordon, we already saw him play the Jets. Had a pretty good game, actually. What am I saying? Pretty good game against the Jets. Is that going to continue? I want to make a note. I don't know. I don't know if that's going to continue. I'm not really sold with Phillip Lindsay coming back. So I'm just going through all those optimal matchups. David Johnson here. Listen, David Johnson has to break out this week. He has to have a good week. He had a good week 1, but had 2 tough matchups after that, including Baltimore and Pittsburgh. Now he is going up against Minnesota. He should run all over them. Love the opportunity. Now, Duke Johnson is scheduled to come back. And, I don't know if that's going to be a huge factor. Now, I do a latest news and notes episode every Sunday morning. Make sure you guys tune into that. Mike Davis, easy matchup versus Arizona, coming off a red-hot week at 23 points. Consider starting him. Jonathan Taylor, he is in a bit of a committee. They are using Naheem Hines a little too much for my liking, and Jordan Wilkins, which is really weird because in week 2 they didn't use him. Then in week 3 they started using the other guys like Hines. I hope Jonathan Taylor gets the full volume. He deserves the full volume. He is the best player on that team. Hopefully he gets more volume. Guys to consider sitting. Ronald Jones, although he is the guy because apparently Leonard Fournette will be banged up and will not be playing. But Ronald Jones versus the Chargers rush defense, tough matchup, and he will get the volume though, so something to note. He's only $4,700. He could be a value play, but again, tough matchup there for you. Miles Sanders got it in tough. Other guys that got in tough, Jordan Howard, Myles Gaskin. Looks like Myles is kind of the main guy there. He's got in tough against Seattle. David Montgomery, I should say. They did bring in Lamar Miller to be on the practice squad, which really sucks because I'm a huge David Montgomery fan. Hopefully David Montgomery, now with the pest that is Tariq Cohen being gone, hopefully he gets the volume and becomes the main guy there in Chicago, but he does have the 7th hardest matchup for his position against Indy. Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt have it in tough against Dallas this week. Nick Chubb coming off 2 red-hot weeks, and Kareem Hunt has been a little bit banged up. Now, he was limited in practice, and he is questionable. So, Nick Chubb could have a good game based on volume. And, of course, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 10th hardest matchup versus position. I don't think that really matters because he had a good 18-point game versus Baltimore. New England could play him a little bit tougher, but he is being used out of the backfield to catch the ball, which is getting him more volume, okay? Let's move on to the tight ends, and we'll go to wide receivers right after that. And hopefully you guys are making notes. Now, again, make sure you guys head over to manscaped.com and get your buzzer. Just got to plug them again. I love this buzzer here. Use the promo code SHOWERLION. I'm telling you guys, especially if you with your winnings on your DraftKings or FanDuel, hey, why don't you purchase one of these? Or just purchase one of these and don't bet. What's up to you guys? Whatever you guys want to, allocate your funds to, that's up to you guys, right? All right, let's keep going here. Optimal matchups for the tight end, TJ Hawkinson, optimal matchup versus the Saints. Now, he is $4,800. Not bad. He is due for a big game, but Galladay is back in the lineup, so could get those red zone targets as well. Drew Sample has an easy matchup. I thought he'd get targeted a lot more last week. I was wrong on that one. I thought he was a great value play, but he only got like a couple targets. He had like 1 point. Not good at all. Robert Tonyan coming off a big week there with Green Bay. This is going to be a viable tight end, especially with the injury to Allen Lazard. I like him. He's $3,400. Not a bad value for the tight end position. Moving on here, Logan Thomas versus Baltimore. Not a bad matchup because they don't play tight ends as hard. Mark Andrews, which is crazy, still $6,000, coming off a terrible 2 weeks. Yet DraftKings still valuing him as a top tight end. It's a shame, man. They just see him as that, which is kind of, you can capitalize and get yourself the Robert Tonyans of the world as value and let people waste the budget on Mark Andrews. Although Mark Andrews is due for a bounce back week, so that kind of makes sense why he's so expensive. George Kittle should be back in the lineup, $6,300. He was hurt, but they need a target there. George Kittle, a prime target there in San Fran. Austin Hooper's done absolutely nothing, but he's got a good matchup. Darren Waller, due for a huge bounce back week, but he is playing Buffalo. They play the tight ends mediocre. I mean, it's a mid-range matchup for him, but he is $5,200 coming off a terrible week 3 with 3 points. Week 3, 3 points. Evan Ingram's been terrible as well. Got a pretty easy matchup this week. Some rough matchups here at the tight end position. Let me just go to my spreadsheet here. And again, with tight end, you could take some chances here. Jimmy Graham, tough matchup here, but had a 24-point game last week. Playing Indy, going to have it in tough. Zach Ertz, tough matchup. Second hardest versus position versus San Fran. Mike Gesicki, he had a red-hot week 2. Mediocre week 3 going into week 4. Playing Seattle, he's going to have it a little bit tough there. Tyler Higby, week 2 was solid. Came back down to reality week 3 with 8 points. 28 week 2, only 8 points in week 3. 5th hardest matchup versus position. Be careful with him in DFS. Travis Kelsey, 7th hardest matchup versus position, but this guy eats every week. You're almost guaranteed 10 to 15 points a week. Is expensive, though. Travis Kelsey, $6,800 because they know he puts up points. And Hayden Hurst, who's done really much nothing other than week 2, putting up 8 points, 7 points last week, coming into Green Bay. 8th hardest matchup versus position. Be cautious with him. All right. Moving on to wide receiver. The guy that's got the best matchup versus position at the wide receiver position. And I'm telling you guys, when you look at wide receiver, this is where you can start taking some chances in your lineups because we see it so often. There's so many wide receiver committees so often that you may want to take some chances on some wide receiver twos, like last week, right? We had Mecole Hardman come up with a huge game. So with these committees, the other guy, what is his name? Cedric Wilson, or the guy from the Cowboys? I don't even know his name. He's a 4th stringer. Listen, that guy had a huge game, right? So you never know with wide receivers. So you could take a little bit of risk and get your value here at the wide receiver position. I'm going to give you optimal matchups and the value plays, okay? Devontae Parker, he's been mediocre. Great matchup. I'm giving you the great matchups, okay? Landry Odell, great matchups. Although I did see a tweet from Odell saying something along the line of, he's like, this is too much, this SHI, whatever, T thing. It's too much for me. He says, I don't know if he's like losing his his momentum, losing his swagger. I don't know what's going on with him, but it seems like he feels a little deflated. Understandably so, because he's done nothing for 3 years. It's definitely catching up, but he does have an easy matchup. Devontae Adams, again, he was limited in practice in week 4, but should be playing. They need it with Lazard being hurt against Atlanta. Adams, $7,900, very expensive, coming off an injury week. Will Fuller, Randall Cobb, Cooks, all great matchups, but again, you're rolling the dice on who's going to be the volume getter this week. Again, Amari Cooper, Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, and everybody there from Dallas. I mean, I would not start the guy that had a big week last week. I don't know, remember his name. Cedric Wilson was the name. 31 points last week. I don't see that happening again, man. Not with that many receiving targets. I mean, I would probably even roll the dice on CeeDee Lamb having a big game this week, okay? Let's keep going here. Optimal matchups. Tyreek Hill and the KC Chiefs playing New England. Pretty good matchup for those guys. Who else here? Cooper Kupp coming off a red-hot week, but it could be a Woods week this week. Both of them had a good week last week. Both of them expensive. $6,700 for Cooper Kupp. $6,300 for Robert Woods. Very expensive. When you look at the slew of wide receivers for the Raiders, I don't trust any one of these guys. I'm staying away, but they have a decent matchup. And of course, Lockett and Metcalf, also great matchups as well. Tough matchups here. Edelman, be cautious with him with New England versus KC. I think he's got it in a bit tough this week. And again, he's coming off a mediocre week. Robbie Anderson versus Arizona secondary, pretty tough matchup. We got DJ Chark, tough matchup as well, but I think he should be good to go. I thought he was a little banged up. Playing Cincinnati secondary, they got a terrible rush defense, but their secondary isn't terrible. DJ Chark, be cautious. One of the hardest matchups versus position. Believe it or not, Stephon Diggs got a tough matchup versus Las Vegas Raiders secondary, so be cautious with him as well. And those are your starts and sits, guys. Oh yeah, one more thing. T.Y. Hilton against Chicago, and Keenan Allen versus Tampa Bay. Those guys also have it in tough. And Mike Evans versus the Chargers. Now, Mike Evans, though, I think Godwin's out, so he should, by default, get the volume there. All right? So I'll give you a couple of defenses I like here this week. I'll give you the optimal defensive matchup here for the week. Ravens versus Washington is good. Rams versus the Giants, also good. So I'd go with those two. You could go San Fran versus Philly as well, but I like the two I mentioned before a little bit better if you are looking at defense. Colts versus Chicago could be a favorable matchup as well, though Chicago has been putting up some points on the board, but that's also a good matchup defensively. So that's it, guys. Saturday DFS show. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Honestly, I want you guys to really win and dominate DFS, DraftKings, FanDuel, and of course your year-long leagues as well. I'm all about you guys winning. Hopefully this show helps. Go back, listen to it again if you want those optimal plays, and go back and listen to the Start Sits episode as well, okay? Smash thumbs up, leave some questions. I'll try to get to as many people as possible. Head on over to manscaped.com and use promo code Showerline and get your lawnmower, okay, guys? Thank you for being here, guys. I appreciate it. Have a great weekend, and I'm out.